Good morning, everyone. My name is Fiona Coyle, and I'm the CEO of Mental Health Reform. On behalf of Mental Health Reform and our co host, LGBT Ireland, and Belong to, I'd like to welcome you to this very special seminar this morning. Firstly, I just want to say a big thank you to Erica for that wonderful session before the conference. I've never felt so calm and relaxed coming into an event. So thank you very much for that. And it just highlights the importance of really taking that time out each day, maybe just to slow down and to breathe and to stretch. Yeah, so Mental Health Reform, for those who don't know us, we are the National Coalition for Mental Health. We're a membership based organisation. We have nearly 80 members. Our members represent a diversity of interests. We have members who support, those kind of with delivering mental health services. We have members who represent children's rights, disability rights, members who, of course, represent LGBTI rights. But what all our members have in common is that they're all committed to a vision of mental health services in Ireland that deliver to everyone in this country, every individual, he or she or they, no matter who they are, where they live, that they get the quality of services that they need to have their best mental health outcomes. So what we do as Mental Health Reform is we provide a platform for almost 80 members to come together to speak with one really powerful voice toward government and other key stakeholders to really highlight the need to reform our mental health services, to invest in our mental health services. So we do a lot of campaigning. We also do a lot of kind of policy submissions around for the sector. We provide that platform. So if you are interested in being part of that movement to change our mental health services for the good of the individuals that are accessing it, please do engage with us on social media or visit our website. Yeah, so today is a very exciting space, I believe. Ireland has made such significant advancements towards equality for LGBTI plus citizens over the last 2 decades, which is wonderful to see. Ireland has also been through a period of change in relation to our mental health services, which have gone through, huge reforms over the last 2, 3 decades. But unfortunately, there are still kind of huge concerns in relation to service access and the capacity of our services to deliver the type of services that individuals and families and carers need. We've all gone through, a huge period of change over the last 9 months. The pandemic, which we have and are living through, have really brought to the fore the importance of an effective and a kind of a health services that delivers for everyone. It's really brought to the fore the importance of ensuring parity of esteem between our physical and our mental well-being. I think Irish people now more than ever before are really want to have a mental health service that is effective, that is equitable, that is respectful. And to date, many people in Ireland across the country have been disappointed. Service users, families, carers have been disappointed by what they've seen, maybe what they've heard. And I think this is something that we really need to move on from and to improve. And there's a huge opportunity now in this bigger dialogue that we're having as a country to ensure that the advancement and the focus on our mental health services remain to the fore in every conversation. We do know that the advancements that have taken place for the LGBTI plus community have led to the community doing well overall, but we do know that there is higher prevalence of mental health difficulties among the community. And I think that's why we're here today. You know, it's really about kickstarting a conversation to really improve the visibility of mental health care among the members of the LGBTI plus community, but also to increase visibility among policymakers, among those who are providing services, of the needs of the community, so that the services that are being provided reflect the experiences of those who've already experienced the service and may not have had the outcome that they have had wished for. So we've brought together a really distinguished list of speakers representing a kind of a diversity of interest, from academia to service providers to, of course, those with lived experiences. Today, you know, when we had the idea about this seminar, of course, we had thought about bringing people together, you know, in a room. Never, I think, had we thought in our wildest dreams when this idea had originally been thought of last year, that we would be speaking virtually from our kitchens or living rooms across the country. But, you know, I think while we may be in separate physical spaces, we still can engage with each other. So this is a conversation. Do use the chat, the question and answers function. Do use the hashtag LGBTI mental health, which will be in the box now as well, to engage in the conversation. So, you know, get involved, share your thoughts, and let's use this as really a point to build momentum to ensure that we're moving towards LGBTI sensitive mental health services. So I have the privilege of introducing our first speaker. So without further ado, to kick off today's proceedings, we have a very special message from our Minister of State for Mental Health and Older People, Minister Mary Butler. So I'm going to hand over to Mary now.
Hello everyone. I'm sorry I can't talk to you in person, but I would like to thank the organisers of this webinar for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today. This collaboration between LGBT Ireland, Belong To and mental health reform is very valuable in providing a forum to discuss the mental health needs of LGBTI plus individuals and how our mental health system can best respond to these needs. It is also timely in that so many of us are experiencing mental health difficulties due to COVID-19. The current pandemic has generated additional challenges, stresses, fears and anxieties, some of which will be unique to particular groups of individuals. It is essential that going forward there is a greater focus on mental health promotion, prevention and early intervention so that we can improve the mental health outcomes of everyone living in Ireland. This, of course, must be complemented by appropriate specialist mental health services where necessary. While there has been significant actions taken in recent years to improve the mental health of our nation, there is still stigma associated with it. This can be compounded if you are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender or intersex. Stigma can lead to bullying, which can have a negative effect on a person's mental well-being. Last week was Belong To's Stand Up Awareness Week, an anti-LGBT bullying campaign that involves secondary schools across Ireland. This is one of the many very important initiatives that can promote the mental health and well-being of young LGBTI plus people living in Ireland. The importance of providing information to young people cannot be understated. During October, I arranged for a mental health information leaflet to be distributed to 4,000 schools around the country. The leaflet signposts a number of HSE-funded national organisations, including Belong To, that provide various mental health supports and services to young people and their families. At a national level, there is a lot of work being done in relation to the LGBTI community. The National LGBTI Plus Inclusion Strategy 2019 to 2021 is the government's policy promoting inclusion, targeting discrimination and improving the quality of life and well-being for LGBTI plus people. The new mental health policy sharing the vision and the Connecting for Life strategy to reduce suicide both identify the LGBTI community as a priority group. Both recognise that supports and service provision should be cognizant of the sometimes complex experiences and needs of priority groups. This is why a person-centred and outcome-focused approach is promised. More specifically, sharing the vision recognises that certain groups, including the LGBTI plus community, may have specific vulnerabilities or difficulties that should be considered in the way mental health services are delivered. It proposes that a more developed framework for the implementation of cultural, diversity and gender competency is required to respond to the needs of these groups. I am fully committed to the full implementation of sharing the vision and ensuring that all mental health services are welcoming, respectful and responsive to diversity. I was very pleased to announce earlier this month the appointment of Mr. John Saunders as Independent Chair of the National Implementation and Monitoring Committee, tasked with the rollout of the new mental health policy. I would also like to mention today our National Sexual Health Strategy. One of the strategy's goal is that everyone in Ireland will receive comprehensive and age-appropriate sexual health education and information and will have access to appropriate prevention and promotion services. The success of each of these pieces of work will hinge on acknowledging the specific difficulties and unique needs of the LGBTI community and delivering services and supports that are informed and responsive to those needs. Again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today, and I would like to congratulate all of those involved on a very successful event. Gorv Mahagud.
I'd like to thank the Minister for opening up today's event for us. I think it's really great to hear her commitment in delivering the type of mental health services I think we're going to be discussing in today's seminar. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our wonderful hostess for the day. So I think she is familiar to many people on this call. So Dil Wickremasinghe. I hope I haven't. I hope I've gotten it right. I've done a good job. Great, Dil. So Dil is a journalist, a co-director of Inside Matters, and a trainee psychotherapist. So for the rest of the day, Dil, I'm handing over to you. Thank you so much to everyone. Interact and enjoy the.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Fiona, for the lovely introduction, and indeed to Minister Mary Butler for speaking this morning, and of course Erica, who really set a wonderful tone for us this morning with her mindfulness and meditation and yoga. So yes, my name is Dil Wickremasinghe, but my full name is Mainly Kulasuri Nancy Leah Dilhani Wickremasinghe. Now, Fiona, aren't you happy that I didn't insist that you introduce me using my full name? And so Dil comes from my first name, which is Dilhani, which of course in my language in Sri Lanka means horny lesbian. Just joking, just joking. I'm just making sure that you're awake and paying attention because it is early for some. So yeah, it gives me a huge pleasure to be chairing this event this morning for mental health reform. And I suppose why me? Why am I chairing this event? Apart from the fact that I am a lesbian and I have mental health issues, and also I'm just thinking my undercut is growing out very quickly due to obviously the hairdressers being closed, and I'm wondering if I'm losing my lesbian superpowers because my undercut is growing. But yeah, so one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about mental health is because, like many LGBTQ people, I was forced to emigrate in search of a country where I could be myself. So I arrived in Ireland in June 2000. That's 20 years ago this year. God, that flew by. And I started experiencing mental health issues very early on when I moved to Ireland, because the trauma of being rejected by my family and growing up in a homophobic society really sort of started bubbling up when I moved to Ireland, because I felt safe enough in Ireland to actually and look at these issues. So when I tried to access mental health services, this was back in 2005, 2006, it took me 10 attempts before I found a psychotherapist and a service that was inclusive and LGBTQI plus affirming. So there, I suppose that planted the seed in my mind that at some stage I wanted to be, I wanted to work in the area of mental health, and I wanted to be part of the change and create a more inclusive mental health support service in Ireland. So my work in journalism, I've always made it a point to highlight the need for more inclusive mental health support services. And then when I met my now wife, Anne-Marie, back in 2010, it was 10 years ago, funny because she's turning 40 this week, and I proposed to her on her 30th birthday, so that was 10 years ago. So she was just finishing her training as a psychotherapist, and she had the exact same experience as I did, trying to access mental health support services that were inclusive of her sexuality. So we decided to set up Insight Matters, and generally now 10 years later, I generally thought at the start, being, I suppose, a bit mouthy and vocal, it would be my role to just try and raise a bit of awareness and try and generate client referrals for Anne-Marie. Never in our wildest dreams did we think that 10 years later, now we have a full building on Capel Street, at 106 Capel Street, right next to Outhouse, the LGBT Community Resource Centre. We have 15 rooms. I always joke that now we've become a therapy hotel. We have actually a housekeeping department to look after our 15 therapy rooms. We have 80 psychotherapists. At the start of lockdown, we only had 55, but the demand for our services has literally skyrocketed. So we have taken on additional therapists. So now we have 80 therapists, and we now support 500 clients per week. And it's, again, like I still, when I say these words coming out of my mouth, I can't believe them, because 10 years ago, I had no idea that that this service was so needed. And one positive thing that's come out of this pandemic is that I feel the topic of mental health has somewhat been normalized, even though I don't like that word. More people are talking about their mental health, and we heard that from the very first announcement of the first lockdown. Then Taoiseach Leo Varadkar, he mentioned the term mental health in that infamous speech that I remember being, it's one of those moments where you remember for the rest of your life. I remember thinking, that's amazing that he actually mentioned mental health in this speech, and saying how this situation is going to be eroding the mental health of our nation. And so so I feel more people are accessing supports, and yes, there's a very wide kind of a variety of people accessing supports. You could have people who are very much struggling and are experiencing high levels of anxiety and depression and relationship breakdown. But also at the same time, for the first time, I'm seeing more and more people actually being very proactive about accessing services like ours, saying, I feel I'm beginning to struggle. I feel I'm beginning to lose my footing, and I feel I need a bit of support before things get worse. So I really feel it's very much part of the Irish psyche now to be more mindful of our own mental health and our own self-care during this time. And the other positive thing that's come out of this pandemic, we've now, I suppose, we are all kind of virtually providing our services, even though our center is open as it is an essential service, and we're providing face-to-face appointments. But we are taking clients from all over the world. We are seeing clients all over the world. And I'm really pleased to say that my work as a mental health activist is now returning to Sri Lanka. Now, in Sri Lanka, homosexuality is yet to be decriminalized. The term mental health, I suppose Sri Lanka is where Ireland was about 50 years ago when it came to mental health. And I'm actually going to be part of the very first mental health campaign in Sri Lanka, a country that has nearly 20 million people population. I'm going to be part of their first campaign around getting people to be more mindful of their mental health and breaking down stigma. So there is some, a silver lining in this incredibly dark cloud that we're all trying to navigate at the moment. So I want to just remind you a few things before we kick off with our first panel. Hashtags for today, okay? Please use them, because I really love people who are not joining us today to see and get a glimpse of the conversations that we're having today, because in my view, every single health professional or any service that is hoping to support the LGBTQ community needs to watch this. At least they can watch the recording afterwards. So the hashtag is LGBT mental health. So please tweet, Insta, TikTok, whatever you can do, please do. And also the Twitter handles for the mental health reform is MHR reform, or there's also LGBTI Ireland, and belong to, of course, is their handle. And I just want to ask, there's about 136 participants with us, so you're all very welcome. You have the opportunity to ask questions from all our panelists today, so please do pop in your questions into the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of your screen. But also, just to get the conversation rolling, and because I really miss the face-to-face interaction, as I'm sure most of you do as well. So let's try and get a bit of buzz going in a chat box by maybe if you can just say your name and where you're joining us from, and also if you wanted to put in your wellness tip. What are you doing to look after your mental health? What's an integral part of your self-care practice? And then we can maybe, learn from each other and support each other by hearing how other people are looking after their mental health and wellness. Okay, so that's my piece done. Let's move on to our very first panel this morning.